What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies and welcome to my review of Shelter. This is the new Jason Statham action movie, although this one's probably a little lighter on the action than some of his previous movies. Statham stars as Mason, a mysterious man living alone on a small, remote Scottish island. When he saves a young delivery girl, played by Bodhi Ray Brethnick, from a storm, his quiet life is disrupted. He soon finds himself chased by highly trained operatives from his past, and he must use his special skills to keep him and the girl safe. Before I jump into the review, if you'd like to support the channel, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Make sure you subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Also, jump into the comments and share your thoughts about the movie.
I bring you supplies week after week, yet you never leave here. Why is that? Most people just say thank you.
Don't ever come up here again.
So it's that time of year again where we get another Jason Statham movie, and it seems like we get a new one every year or so. And Shelter is pretty much a variation of the type of movies that Jason Statham has become known for. And that's not really necessarily a criticism, because I think Jason Statham is very good at what he does, but he tends to play certain type of character in certain kinds of movies. And it's usually this loner type of guy who has a mysterious or dark past, and that's exactly what you get with Shelter. His character, Mason, is a loner with a dark past. He lives on a remote island. The only interactions he ever has is with this young girl and her uncle, who delivers supplies to his lighthouse. And when he saves her from a storm, he's forced out of the shadows and has to use his skills to take on these bad guys who are part of a bigger conspiracy. I think the biggest difference between this movie and some of Jason Statham's other movies is that this movie is more centered on emotion and not as much on the action. Now, you do get some action here, but it's not really the centerpiece like some of his other movies. And so this movie is slower to start, where it's setting up the characters, it's setting up this larger story about Mason and this young girl. And then you start to get into the action once the story expands. We start to go to other locations. Since this movie is focused a little bit more on emotion, it spends quite a bit of time on developing the relationship between Mason and the young girl, Jessie. Statham and Bodhi Ray Brethnick have a really nice dynamic that I think plays really well. And I think Statham, is really good at playing the protector, and she's really good here too, especially with her interactions with Statham. As I mentioned, this movie does have action, but not as much as you would typically expect to see in a Jason Statham movie, but the action here is pretty good. There are occasionally a couple of fight scenes that don't feel on par with some of the other ones, and then you have some fight scenes that have some really solid choreography. And of course, Jason Statham is good in all of them because he's good at doing that, but yeah, there are some scenes here that don't feel as polished, and then there's others that are just really amazing. One fight sequence that really stands out is one that happens early in the movie, and it had a sort of Home Alone type feel to it, with Jason Statham's character having set these different booby traps around the island as the bad guys approach. And it was a really well put together scene, again, with some really nice fight choreography, and of course those really cool, clever booby traps. Now, the movie does have its flaws. Some of the characters here are really useless. Beyond Jason Statham's character and the young girl, you have characters that kind of show up and don't really move things forward, or characters who aren't really developed enough. You have a really solid cast here like Bill Nighy and Naomi Ackie, but they're pretty much not given much to do, especially Naomi Ackie, whose character is pretty much relegated to barking out orders or staring at screens or reacting to people telling her things that they saw on a screen. And then Bill Nighy seems to be having a good time, like playing sort of this, evil kind of character that's relishing in being evil, but he's not really given much to do. This movie was slow to start, which isn't necessarily a problem, because I don't mind, a movie setting up the story or setting up the character, and I certainly don't mind a slow burn if there's a payoff at the end. But this movie is slow to start because I think it was going for a different kind of tone, and it definitely has a different energy than what you might expect from a Jason Statham movie. And the problem with this pacing is that it doesn't really ever pick up. You do get some action where things get a little bit more interesting. You do get a bigger plot here with, more characters in play and a bigger conspiracy, but it doesn't really seem to go much of anywhere. As I said earlier in this review, this movie is pretty much a variation of different types of Jason Statham movies, so you kind of know what to expect when you watch this movie, especially if you've seen the trailer. Like the trailer gives you a really good idea of what this movie is, and there are no big surprises here. And if you like Jason Statham's characters in those movies, and you like the type of movies that he typically stars in, then you're probably gonna like this one because it's very similar. If you're looking for something a little bit more, something with a little bit more energy, something with a little bit more action, or something that takes some bigger, bolder swings, then this movie's not really going to be for you. And again, that's not really necessarily a criticism. It's just you kind of have to like set your expectations. Overall, I thought Shelter was fine. I mean, it's a well put together action movie. The characters aren't really interesting beyond Jason Statham's character and the young girl. And the action sequences, although not as many as you would typically expect in a Jason Statham movie, are good for the most part, and then some of them kind of disappoint. But if you're just looking for a Jason Statham action movie, then Shelter will deliver exactly what you want. So those are my thoughts on Shelter, which is out in theaters right now. Do you plan on seeing it? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. So that does it for me, everyone. I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.